most of 89 electorates preparing for counting, Jiwaka polling finally underway, and an insight into the life of a scrutineer.
This is National EMTV News with Helen Sayer.
Good evening and thank you for joining me for Tuesday's news. Most of the country's 89 electorates have completed polling and are now preparing for counting. Electoral Commissioner Patilias Gamato made the announcement at the media briefing this afternoon at the Electoral Commission headquarters in Port Moresby. In the Highlands region, counting for Taripori in Hela province commenced today. However, for the two electorates of Como Magarima and Koroba Lake Kopiago, counting was disrupted because of petitions. Commissioner Gamato said additional security personnel have been deployed to those areas.
Commissioner Gamato, when giving his election update for today, said counting in Chimbu was scheduled to begin this afternoon. He said Enga and Western Highlands provinces are expected to start counting on Thursday, 6th of July.
In the Highlands region, Ella counting for Taripori commenced today and is in progress. Counting for two other electorates, Koma Magarima and Koroba Kopiago, has been disrupted because of petitions. Additional security personnel have been deployed to provide security for counting in Koma Magarima and Koroba Kopiago. Chimbu province, counting is scheduled to commence about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Eastern Islands, Obura Warinara electorate will transport ballot boxes into Goroka today. Candidates briefing is scheduled for tomorrow.
In the Momase region, polling is winding down in certain parts of East and West Sepik, Medang and Morobe. It's the same for the New Guinea Islands region, where counting for West New Britain is expected to start on Sunday. For the southern region, polling for Milne Bay, Gulf, Northern and Central provinces have been completed in most electorates. Counting venues for the Central province are still to be confirmed.
In Central province, Aba Open, Arama Coast, and Cloudy Bay LLGs polling completed, while only one team for Amazon Bay to be completed today. Kairuku, Erie and Mekeo LLGs to complete polling by today, 4th of July. Kairuku and Kikori Koyari LLG to be completed on Thursday, 6th and Friday, 7th of July, respectively. Waidala Open, all three LLGs, Guria, Waitape, and Tapini are expected to complete polling on Thursday, 6th of July. Rigo Open, Rigo Coast completed polling. Rigo Central to complete polling by today, 4th of July, while Rigo Inland will complete polling tomorrow, 5th of July.
Mr. Gamato said most parts of the country are now preparing for the counting phase of the national general elections. Delhi Waigeno, National EMTV News.
Electoral Commissioner Patilias Gamato has announced that polling allowances are ready for polling teams. Mr. Gamato was responding to questions about certain temporary election workers in Port Moresby threatening to boycott their duties over meal and risk allowances.
I'll check that one out because I was told that meal allowances were paid. And they were paid, and they're counting. The polling allowances are ready, are prepared and ready. Just before I came in for the press conference, I checked and they said it's ready. Hopefully tomorrow they should get the banks to transfer their funds into their accounts.
The management of University of Technology issued a media statement on the burning of ballot papers during polling on campus last week. Deputy Vice-Chancellor Academic Dr. Ora Ranagi said internal investigations have been made and those responsible for burning the ballot papers have been identified as outsiders. He said this incident portrayed a bad image of the university and that it is unfortunate that students, staff and families were unable to vote due to this incident.
The position of the university is that this is a situation where the university only provided a venue, and so it's between the voters and the Electoral Commission to ensure that the election process was running smoothly. But then we already hear that some culprits came and disturbed the process and the papers were burnt. And as a private citizen of this country, I am not pleased with the incident.
Unused ballot papers for the Mosby Northeast electorate were displayed at the Rita Flynn Netball Courts this morning for transparency. Electoral officers in charge of the Mosby Northeast electorate took out the boxes containing the unused ballot papers out for candidate scrutineers to count them and note their serial numbers. All the examination and cross-checking was done in full view of police and security personnel. In the meantime, Electoral Commissioner Patiles Gamato said all unused and excess ballot papers are all accounted for.
It's accounted for. If they are not used, they have to be accounted for in the presiding officer's journal, because it goes down on record. And nobody should be burning ballot papers. They are accountable forms. And so after the polling, all unused papers must be accounted for and returned. But if it's banned, then they have to put it down in the journal in case someone disputes that in a court of disputed returns.
Counting for the 4 seats in NCD has been deferred to Thursday, 6 July 2017. Electoral Commissioner Patiles Gamato says counting preparations are in progress and officials will commence training tomorrow.
Counting for the 4 seats in NCD was supposed to have started today. However, election officials were not ready to conduct counting. We visited the 3 counting venues in Port Moresby. Around 12 o'clock today, counting officials were only arriving at the Sir John Guy Stadium. That is the venue for the Mosby Northeast open seat.
As you know, National Capital District, we have completed polling, and they are expected to count starting on Thursday.
For the NCD regional and Mosby Northwest seats, preparations are underway at the Rita Flynn Netball Courts. Polling officials were told to go home and return tomorrow morning for the training before counting can commence on Thursday.
Tomorrow they should do that training of the officials, counting officials.
Meanwhile, scrutineers and supporters are camping outside the counting venue in preparations for counting. This afternoon, Gamato said counting will kick off on Thursday. Wednesday will be spent on training officials on the counting process. Thekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
Electoral Commissioner Patiles Gamato has responded to the number of petitions he received from over 15 candidates contesting seats in NCD. In the petitions, the candidates demanded that CCTVs be installed in all counting venues, the removal of NCD Metropolitan Superintendent Benturi, and counting to take place only during the day. After reading through the petitions, this is Mr. Gamato's response.
The fourth petition was in relation to the use of CCTV. The purpose of CCTV is to scrutinize counting. However, CCTV is an expenditure that was not budgeted, included in the 2017 national election budget. It is not also mentioned in the election law to use CCTV. By law, scrutineers are allowed to scrutinize polling and counting. Therefore, I will not allow CCTV as part of the scrutinizing process. Petition was the day counting only. You wanted counting to be done by day. As you know, ballot papers for NCD is too many. Day count will delay the counting, and we will not finish on time. It is advisable to count day and night, as this was the practice in the past, and we will also manage that process.
Hela Election Manager John Tipa has confirmed that they have commenced counting for Taripori. After 5 boxes, James Marape, sitting member and finance minister, is in the lead with over 3,300 votes. Running second and third are 2 independent candidates, Johnny Pokaya Philip with 792 votes and Michael Joseph Payawi with 451 votes. Mr. Tipa said counting stopped at 4 p.m. because there were candidates around the counting area. Taripori has a total of 79 ballot boxes. You're with National EMTV News. We'll have election news from the other centres after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Madang police arrested a 24-year-old man from Morobe this afternoon after he tried to vote a second time. The suspect, identified as Nare Sulung, resides at Humade Finchhafen block. Sulung was caught and detained at the Jomba police cell. Formal charges will be laid soon. The investigative task force team is preparing his charges. This incident is one of several incidents where voters have voted multiple times. Another woman was also arrested for double voting and is also now at the Jomba police station cell. Ahi candidates contesting the lay open seat and villages from Butibam are requesting answers from the Electoral Commission following issues with polling last week. In a meeting today, the candidates signed a document that will be presented to the Electoral Commission. They are also requesting the EC and police to investigate allegations that ballot boxes from West Butibam had been tampered with last week to dismiss doubts.
Ahi candidates who are contesting the lay open seat raised concerns today following issues of roll discrepancies last week and the one-day polling period, which they say is not enough for a densely populated area like Lay. The meeting was held at the Butibam Resource Center and attended by the candidates, village leaders and the community.
And in the process, I think the biggest outcome is that planting all young people polling stations people are vote because of that. So they are denied the democratic constitutional right to vote.
The candidates signed a document stating these concerns as well as recommendations. It will be presented to the Electoral Commission officers once all candidates sign the document. Apart from raising concerns of polling, the traditional landowners are also appealing to the Electoral Commission to accept and count ballot papers from the boxes which were disputed on the 29th.
Something. So we just want to get a big blogger man on them Electoral Commissioner when something come up, almost push him to block box must go into accounting. So any dispute will come up, start blow discretion blow. Commissioner, Electoral Commissioner on them staff.
In response to this appeal, returning officer for Lay Daniel Wasinak said the ballot papers from the area will be counted as long as the returns are balanced with the number of ballot papers issued. Lucy Kopana, National EMTV News, Lay.
Morobe election manager Simon Soheke says polling for Nawai block in Lay's Ward 1 area will not be conducted. This follows disruption of polling last week by community leaders demanding more ballot papers. Mr. Soheke said it would set a bad precedence if Nawai block is allowed another day to poll and has made his stance clear to the Nawai community leaders in a meeting held today.
On Thursday, polling at Nawai block was disrupted by people claiming to be community leaders. They demanded the suspension of polling. Polling officials were confronted by scrutineers and leaders who said the ballot papers were not enough. The officials suspended polling at 9:30 a.m. that morning but were advised to remain on site. Morobe election manager Simon Soheke said today that polling will not be conducted for the ward.
So I believe we have given them ample time to cast their votes, which they have not done. So the decision now is we from our end we might not poll as it is so.
Joe Are, a resident who has voted in 3 elections, is disappointed. He says polling should have been allowed to continue.
Voting should go ahead and come up here because government give one data so makim leader time only dispute me and affect Mr.
Grace Laman, a woman's representative and scrutineer who was there, said the community wanted to vote, but polling was disrupted by a few people.
Just make it this election or some fail election. Because me plus sample eligible voters, me plus stop na me plus no been vote.
Soheke said if polling is allowed, the precedent he would set would possibly pave way for future elections to be disrupted in the same way. These concerns were considered, including the legal implications that could affect the conduct of elections. Lucy Kopana, National EMTV News, Leh.
One of the players in the election process is the scrutineer. For 4 decades since the first elections, the seemingly lowly unpaid volunteers have held the Electoral Commission accountable during election time. They have been the eyes and ears of candidates they support. While they have been known to disrupt counting and polling, they are also key in maintaining balance in our democracy.
Every 5 years since independence, thousands of volunteers are placed at polling booths and at counting centers to keep watch over a delicate democratic process that ends with the formation of a new government in Port Moresby. We've come to know these volunteers as scrutineers. It's a job that many do in the hope that their candidate wins the elections.
Mipla come sleep, mipla come waslo container ballot box.
The life of a scrutineer is tough. In Leh, dozens have been camped outside the Sir Ignatius Kilage Stadium, waiting for the counting to begin. The role of the scrutineer is important in a democracy. Members of the sometimes troublesome pack have been abused, but almost always they're the first to raise the alarm at any hint of foul play or errors during polling or counting. It's a job many don't take lightly. In Leh City, scrutineers are now looking forward to the results of counting after the troublesome polling that happened on Thursday. Many are of the view that there is little they can do about the polling, but they'll be vigilant during the counting process.
Polling already almost it's near completion now. Conclusion now. We go into counting stage now and we can't do anything. But then problem we are electoral commission need to look now in how we can organize now. We can try and sort him out this problem the future election
Scott Wide, National EMTV News, Leh.
And now looking at our finance news, the kina closed unchanged at $0.3145 US in the interbank markets. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.307 US, $0.3976 Australian dollars, $0.267 euro, and 34.48 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold, coffee, cocoa, and copra closed the day higher. Palm oil closed higher, while crude oil and copper closed the day lower. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 129.64 points higher, the ASX closed at 99.31 points higher, and the Ordinaries closed at 92.12 points higher. Stories making headlines overseas when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas, a crash involving a bus full of pensioners in Germany has left 18 people dead, with 2 more fighting for their lives. The rest of the 48 passengers on board were all injured.
The heat was so intense, there was no chance of rescue. Nothing firefighters could do, they said, to help the people left inside. It's thought the coach ran into the back of a lorry before bursting into flames. There were 48 people on board. Those who got out in time were all injured, some critically. Everyone else, all of them pensioners, died on the bus.
The heat must have been so intense that nothing inflammable is left on the bus. All that is left are steel parts. So one can imagine what this must have meant for the people inside the bus.
This afternoon, recovery of the dead and the beginning of an investigation. The crash happened during an early morning traffic jam. The speed, the ferocity of the ensuing fire has shocked many.
We know of a large number of victims and a large number of injured. Our thoughts are with the victims' relatives, and we wish all of the injured a quick recovery from the bottom of our hearts.
Police say they have now recovered all of the victims from the wreckage. It's emerged they were German tourists on their way to Italy. What should have been the start of a holiday ended in one of the worst road accidents in this country's history.
Some French opposition leaders have refused to attend President Emmanuel Macron's special parliamentary address at the Palace of Versailles, saying it resembled a presidential monarchy. There are others who are saying he is trying to amass too much power. In his speech, Macron proposed radical new changes, vowing to cut the country's 900 politicians by a third.
The dignity of the presidential office is something about which Emmanuel Macron feels very deeply. He came to Versailles, a place of regal pomp and awe, to talk to his legislators. He called and they came, 900 deputies and senators in buses from Paris. Newcomers to the assembly like the mathematician and Macron loyalist Cédric Villani, who saw nothing wrong with the president's unconventional summons.
It's an exceptional political moment. The nation has gone through a terrible lack of trust recently. I find it perfectly normal and reassuring that the President wants to address the Congress today.
Les engagements seront tenus. The speech was a 90-minute pep talk, an exhortation to lawmakers to understand the appetite for change in France and to act.
Et certainement de son sens.
He said he wants to make government more efficient, cutting the number of MPs by a third. And Europe was, as ever, a central theme. Earlier in the day, there'd been a security alert, an alleged plot to shoot the president on Bastille Day. No mention of that here. But not everyone likes this new-look French presidency. The far left boycotted Versailles and held a symbolic meeting of its own on left-wing Republican turf in eastern Paris, where views of President Macron were pronounced.
He portrayed himself as a sort of a god.
Macron, the monarch, Macron, the Jupiter on Olympus. Expect a lot more of that from the left-wing opposition, especially if, no when, things start to go less majestically well for France's young head of state.
There are growing demands that a care home in the British Channel Island of Jersey be demolished after a report found incidents of child abuse spanned decades and warning children could still be at risk today.
The island of Jersey, proud and independent, but according to the report, an island whose attitude to children in the care system was indefensible. Chair Francis Oldham said children had been abandoned in care with no regard to their rights or needs. Her panel had identified what she termed the Jersey way.
Using the expression in a pejorative way, it is said to involve the protection of powerful interests and resistance to change, even when change is patently necessary.
Allegations of abuse in Jersey came to public prominence during police operations at this former children's home. The search for human remains at Haut-de-la-Garenne was inconclusive, but the images spurred islanders who'd kept their secrets for so long to come forward.
They put Dettol in my mouth. I couldn't breathe, my throat swelled up.
Darren was sent into care as a baby. He says he and his friends were frightened to tell their stories of abuse.
Everybody had a story, but nobody wanted to say it.
During a 3-year investigation, police recorded more than 500 alleged offences at homes throughout the island. Madeline spent her early years at Haut-de-la-Garenne. She wants to remain anonymous.
Awful experiences of abuse, being locked in a cell for days on end, beatings, being forced down in the bath. Practically, I thought I was going to die then.
The report said lessons had not been learnt and Jersey's children were still at risk. Even in newer homes, they were not receiving the care and support they needed. The island's chief minister had listened with colleagues. He said Jersey had to act.
We failed children who needed our care, who needed to be protected and listened to. Unpalatable truths were swept under the carpet. because it was the easiest thing to do. I am deeply sorry.
The report says Haute de la Garenne should be torn down, a symbol of fear, mistrust and the weaknesses of the Jersey way.
And back home, election news from New Guinea Islands. The election manager for East New Britain Province, Jiwaka, today came under fire by intending candidates who are contesting various seats in East New Britain Province. The candidates presented a petition to Mr. Voivoi and his returning officers at midday today, demanding counting to begin immediately for East New Britain Province. Edwin Fidelis has more on this story.
The team of angry candidates demanded that the counting must start this week and not later.
Start immediately. Why the delay?
The East New Britain election manager, Joab Voivoi, and his staff received the petition and assured the candidates and their supporters that counting will begin on Sunday the 9th. It is understood the Electoral Commissioner, Patles Gamato, said today that counting will begin on Monday, the 10th, for East New Britain Province.
In the New Guinea Islands region, East New Britain Province, all polling completed by today.
But the candidates and their supporters say that is a long wait, as most of the polling in the province ended this week.
Reach him here Sunday evening, and then Monday you do all the necessary transfers here and there. It may delay till Tuesday, guys.
Mr. Voivoi, however, says the Provincial Electoral Office need more time because they need to carefully prepare the election returns before counting starts, and also to allow Pomio district, the only district in the province that is yet to complete its polling.
To formalize all returns belong along, make sure that returns belong along by ready you follow counting. Because law counting, suppose all the counting, now anything happen, then like go back and all returns long. Make sure that all get a return, all team by confirm. The
candidates and their supporters say in previous elections there were noticeable foul plays regarding ballot boxes being tampered with, and to avoid such experiences from happening again, they want counting to start as early as possible. The candidates and their supporters are not happy, and if the counting dates are rescheduled again, they will be very angry. Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Kokopo.
More than 155,000 voters in the autonomous region of Bougainville were expected to have cast their votes in this year's national general elections. Polling should also be completed by tomorrow. Acting election manager Desmond Timiaso says this should allow counting to proceed. Fabian Hakelitz with this report.
The game is now on who will represent the autonomous region of Bougainville in the next national parliament. With ballot papers issued for the national elections at 156,100, it will be split among 73 candidates contesting the North, Central and South open seats, including the Bougainville regional seat. Total enrollments is 155,499. With the autonomous region of Bougainville into its second last day of polling, people are turning up in numbers to cast their votes for the Bougainville leadership in the 9th Parliament. And the acting election manager Desmond Timiaso anticipates polling will be completed by tomorrow. The three-day polls, which began yesterday, captured eligible voters who missed out when the supplementary rolls were not used last week. Although minor discrepancies on voter roll not being updated, this has not stopped eligible voters to have cast their votes, because this might be the last national election for Bougainville, as the autonomous region is chartering its way forward for referendum come June 2019. At the meantime, the acting election manager for Bougainville hopes to proceed with counting once polling is complete. In Boca, Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
Trukai Sports is next. We'll have news on basketball and State of Origin. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. There was plenty of new talent on display as the National Basketball Championships kicked off in Port Moresby. 20 teams from across the country are taking part in the competition, vying for a place in the Melanesian Cup in September. Gordon Eki reports.
It was an all-star affair when Port Moresby took on the Morobe team, with 8 of the PMBL players also on the national team. But despite the expertise, the young side from Morobe put on a fight, with the match one of the most intense of the competition so far. The match between Alatau and NCD kicked off to an exciting start as NCD led the first quarter of the game. But Alatau stepped up their game in the second quarter. In the third round, Alatau continued to pick up its game, bringing its score to 45 points, but NCD still dominated with 73 points. The national capital team continued to building momentum, adding another 24 points in the final quarter. The final score was a whitewash, with NCD winning 97 points to Alatau 59. Over on court 2, Kerema led from the start, but Tubuseria managed to share the scoreboard in the second quarter. In the third round, Kerema came back with a different ball game and this time had the Tubuserians desperate for a score. It was a heated affair in the closing minutes of the game, but the Keremas dominated, beating the Tubuserians 92 points to 65 at full time. Godwin Eki, National EMTV Sports.
To NRL, Ben Hunt has been named in the Queensland Maroons team for next week's State of Origin decider. Hunt and Cameron Munster are the only inclusions in the team and are set to make their State of Origin debut.
Many people feel informed Seagulls halfback Daly Cherry Evans should have been selected over Ben Hunt. There has been speculation and rumours of Cherry Evans being snubbed by Maroons selectors. Hunt was playing in a lower level of competition less than a month ago and now comes off the bench for the Maroons. Michael Morgan looks set to replace Cowboys teammate Jonathan Thurston in the 5'8" position. Storm playmaker Cameron Munster will replace Darius Boyd in the centres.
Sees off Adam Blair, comes to Corbin Sims.
As for the New South Wales Blues, coach Laurie Daly has not made any changes to his team. Captain Boyd Cordner, Tyson Frizzell, James Tedesco and Josh Dugan are suffering from niggling injuries and have been given till the end of this week to prove their fitness. Daly has named Dragons forward Jack DeBellin as the 18th man if Cordner or Frizzell are unable to recover in time. The Blues will be searching for their second series win in 12 years and the first win in a decider at Suncorp Stadium since 2005.
Oh, there he is, up in the crowd.
Elijah Levette, National EMTV Sports.
Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. Oil Search PNG has donated 25,000 kina to the PNG Cancer Foundation to sponsor this year's Daffodil Corporate Golf Challenge. Set to see 4 corporate teams in this year's challenge, PNG Cancer Foundation CEO Daddy Toka Jr. says funds raised will go towards cancer education programs in the country. Godwin Eki reports.
With the aim to reduce cancer in PNG, PNG Cancer Foundation is once again promoting its Daffodil Golf Challenge to interested corporate organizations for this year's event. Supporting the event in the last 14 years is Oil Search PNG. Executive General Manager Geria Aupi says Oil Search will continue to support the event, keeping in mind the aim of reducing cancer in PNG.
Especially the corporate community, to support us in our endeavors to get out there.
With already 8 teams on board, the aim is to get at least 40 teams for this year's challenge. Defending champions Miru Pasiloyas held the title for 4 years as of 2005, 2001, 2013 and 2016. According to PNG Institute of Medical Research, cancer is responsible for 1 in every 10 deaths in PNG. Oil Search, together with PNG Cancer Foundation, is encouraging other business houses to take the challenge and come on board.
Cancer Foundation does do a lot of its focus, a lot of its work now on education, education and awareness. So that's in schools and communities, and of course, in schools, it's been quite popular, and it's something that we want to continue on with because it's some of the messaging is quite simple. By making healthy lifestyle choices.
Funds raised will go towards cancer awareness and education programs in schools and communities. The All Search Daffodil Challenge will kick off on the 25th of August. Godwin Eki, National, EMTV Sports.
To the ICC Women's World Cup update, six-time champion Australia is now sitting second on the progressive ladder behind India. Tied with India on 6 points and winning 3 matches each in ODI format, the defending champion is now trailing India's 1.11 by 0.72 net run rate. Australia will take on Pakistan tomorrow. A return to the top of the table would require them to win this round. After a comfortable win over New Zealand by 5 wickets yesterday, the Aussie ladies are expecting a much tougher opposition from the Pakistan side. And losing to India by 95 runs in their last match and sitting with West Indies at the bottom of the ladder, Pakistan is still positive they can turn their fortunes in their meet with Australia. To cycling, the Tour de France has seen Slovak Peter Sagan power to victory. The world champion suffered an untimely pedal problem but slotted his shoe back into its clip just in time and powered to victory in the third stage of the Tour de France. And that ends Jiwaka Sports. The weather details for the next 24 hours when we come back.
Jiwaka Sports. Jiwaka Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
Your weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow, mostly fine in all centers of the southern region. In the Momase region, mostly fine in Lae, Medang, Wewak and Vanimo. In the New Guinea Islands region, mostly fine in Lorengau, Kokopo, Rabaul and Kimbe, cloudy periods in Buka and partly cloudy in Kavieng. In the Highlands region, morning fog clearing, then partly cloudy in Mount Hagen, and morning fog clearing, then mostly fine, with afternoon shower or two in Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabeg. Forecast for small ships for the next 24 hours, strong wind warning current for all coastal waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait, and Daru to Kiwa Island, to Kerma to Yule Island, to Hood Point, to all of Milne Bay and its islands, including Samaria Island to Cape Vogel, to Finschhafen through Vitia Strait, Dampier Strait including Siasi Island to Long Island, to West New Britain and South Bougainville. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru, to Kiwa Island to Kerma, to Yule Island to Hood Point, to Samaria Island with waters of eastern and western Milne Bay Islands, with waters of Samaria Island to Cape Vogel, to Finschhafen and with waters of Finschhafen through Vitia Strait, Dampier Strait including Siasi Islands to Long Island to Medang to Bogia, seas of 2.5 to 3 meters. Waters of Bogia to Wewak to Aitape Vanimo and northern PNG Indonesian border, and with waters of New Island to East New Britain to Bougainville, seas of 1 to 1.5 meters. Waters of Manus and its western group of islands, seas of 0.5 to 1.5 meters. And waters of West New Britain, seas of 2 to 3 meters. Ocean forecast for PNG areas in the Coral Sea, seas rough with southeast winds at 25 to 34 knots. In the Solomon Sea, seas rather rough to rough with southeast winds at 25 to 34 knots. In the Bismarck Sea, seas moderate to rough with southeast winds at 10 to 20 knots, tending 25 to 34 knots west. And in the Pacific Ocean, seas slight with southeast winds at 10 to 15 knots.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
And that's the way it is this Tuesday, the 4th of July 2017. Coming up next, Yovo 2017 with Neville Choi and Titi Gabi. Good night.